Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it is my very favorite kind of show. It's the one where I get to be a hater. It's the best. I look forward to this every single year.
And there are a few haters as hateful as you. So, yes, this is where you get to shine, where, the rest of the year you're in the background. Nobody sees you. Nobody pays attention to you. But this is where you've prepared for this. This is like your Heisman moment. And it's where we make some season predictions and you get to stomp on the hearts and minds and throats of every Buckeye fan with all of your, I wouldn't even say rage. It's because it's not rage. It's a jovial love to hate.
It's a cold, calculating mathematical approach to the world. That's all. And I do like the fact that you're accusing me of being just staying in the background the rest of the year when during one of your chats this week, someone commented on how I just carry this show every time. And you know what? It's about time someone noticed. You're welcome, everyone.
One person noticed.
Well, it definitely wasn't a burner account of mine. I can tell you that.
Teve Torbs. Anyway, so this show, it was not my idea. Well, it wasn't my idea technically. But what we are doing is every year, Wyatt Crozier of the Buckeye Sports Bulletin sends out a list of questions, predictions, asking for the rest of the beat to contribute so that I guess he can get some sort of content out of it or some season averages, or this is what people think. And so, it's stuff like, does Ohio State make the playoff, leading receiver, just stuff like that. And so I have not done mine yet. I should probably write all of these down that I do so that I don't have to do this over twice, so that I keep the same answers. So I haven't filled mine out. So what we're going to do is we're going to give our answers right here on this show without any preparation. So this is like no second guessing. This is first guessing right off the top of our heads. No, gosh, I can't, it's like whatever your first thought is, that's what you got to go with. And usually, Tom, in my experience, that could either be right or wrong.
Unless it pushes. It's like, oh, it's sort of right. It was half right. Yeah. Yeah. This is always kind of a fun exercise. And it was like, I felt kind of bad, like, we're kind of stealing his content, but really he's stealing our labor for his content. So really this is kind of like a mutually beneficial thing. So thank you. And you're welcome.
Are we the,
we're the remora. Yes. Okay. To answer the question you haven't asked
fish,
yet. Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I was going to say flies or the oxen, but I like that one better. So Tom, first one, which is very famous around these parts because, Tom will tell you the first one here, regular season record for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And before you say anything, I'll go first because I want you to have time to explain yourself, because I won't need any time to explain myself. I'm going to say Ohio State regular season record this year is going to be 12-0. I believe they will win every game. Sure, they are favored to win every game, but it's tough to win every game, as I'm sure somebody will tell you shortly. But I believe they are good enough to do so. And I have them going 12-0 in the regular season. Tom, how about you?
Tony, decades of watching college football has taught me about the folly of predicting any one individual college football team to go undefeated during a regular season. Think about how many great Ohio State teams have managed to not go undefeated at some point in the last 30 years during the regular season. 1993 won 10 games, but 10-1-1. They tied against Wisconsin, lost to Michigan. 95 lost to Michigan. 96 lost to Michigan. 98 lost to Michigan State. Yes, they did it in 2000. 2003, they lost to Michigan, Wisconsin. And you go through. 2005, they lost to Penn State and Texas. 2006, they did it in the regular season. 2007, they lost to Illinois. I mean, there's just not that many over the years that go undefeated. Even Urban Meyer teams during the regular season, 2012 did it. 2013 did it, lost in the Big Ten championship game. 14 lost to Virginia Tech. 15 lost to Michigan State. 16 lost to
Penn
State. 17 lost to Iowa and Oklahoma. 18 lost to Purdue. 19 did it. 20 did it. 20 was a short season, but it's very rare. Even these great teams, 50% of them aren't going to do it. And yes, they're favored to win every individual game, but you add it up and if you are 70% likely to win 2 games, well, you're 49% likely to win both of them. That's just how the math works. So, the next question is, what is/are the losses, if any? And I don't have an answer for that. There's no any individual game where I would pick them to lose. The math just says odds are you're going to slip up at some point. That is how a team full of 18 to 23-year-old males is going to be. You're not going to be laser focused every single week. Sometimes you're going to lose to Purdue by 4 touchdowns. Like, that is a thing that will happen from time to time. It happens a lot more in West Lafayette than it does in Columbus. And they have Purdue in Columbus this year. So I don't think that's a big concern this year. But Alabama does not run the table every year. Georgia does not run the table every year. Oklahoma does not run the table every year. Clemson doesn't run the table every year. Ohio State doesn't run the table every year. I always pick a team. I never pick a team to go undefeated. It is just, odds are you're going to be wrong if you pick a team to go undefeated. But that's nothing new for you. So go ahead.
I'm waiting for you to say 7-5 because you still haven't given an answer on the win-loss record.
Oh, 11-1. 11-1. 11-1. And there is no individual. There's like 4 games. It could be Oregon. It could be at Indiana. It could be Penn State. It could be, I don't know. Is there another one that's a plausibly losable game?
Michigan.
I mean, maybe there's something crazy happens at Minnesota, but I mean, it feels like Oregon, Penn State, and at Indiana are your 3 most plausibly losable games. I wouldn't give them more than a 25% chance of losing any of those games, but that those small percentages add up. And if look at like the SP Plus numbers that Bill Connolly puts out, no one is predicted to go 12-0. No one's like average. Even if you're predicted to beat every team by 20 points, no one is like projected to be 12.0 and 0. Like, it's always 11.2 and 0.8 or something like that. Just odds are you're going to slip up at some point, whoever that happens to be against.
See, Tom, that's the problem with you. You think how you should think. I think how I want to think. And I will admit, you say you go back 30 years and this never. I did not think about the 1992 Ohio State team when I was considering the 2021 Ohio State team. So that's my fault. How would Kirk Herbstreit, what would his impact be on the Ohio State Buckeyes going undefeated? Could he complete, Alan DeGraffenreid Reed? What would his, what is his impact on this season? That's my fault for not thinking about that. I'm still going, I understand what you're saying. I hear you. I understand. I know. I'm still going 12-0, Tom. You did not sway me, as I know you tried.
So. Yeah, you look back at some of those teams. There's always a game or 2 every year that could go either way, and sometimes you win, and sometimes the Purdue game in 2012. Like, how close were they to losing the Purdue game in 2012? That one went their way. How close were they to winning the Michigan State game in 2015 or the Penn State game in 2016? Like, sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. You're going to have a game or 2 that ends up basically a coin flip. You're going to have an injury at some point. You're going to have just an off week at some point. Someone's going to have the trick play of the century against you, whatever it is. There's enough randomness and chaos in college football that even a team like Ohio State that's favored to win every game by double digits, odds are, greater than 50-50 that they will slip up at some point during the course of the season.
What really bothers me is like media is supposed to be impartial. So I don't know why you cover this team if you hate them so much. It's lame, frankly. Next question. Oh, go ahead.
Nope. I was about to say the name of someone who used to cover the team whose shoes I was apparently filling, but nope. I'm going to let that one go, and we're just going to keep moving on with the go on with the next question, Tony.
Be a good person. This one will be interesting to hear your answer. I'll let you go first. Big Ten champion.
Yes, I think odds are in one game where you're focused, Big Ten championship game. If you're focused, yes. Wisconsin's pretty good this year. This is not a game where Ohio State's going to be favored by 24 points or anything like that. This is a pretty good Wisconsin team. And if it's not a pretty good Wisconsin team, it's going to be a pretty good Iowa team. And, weird things can happen. I mean, last year, Ohio State was substantially more talented than Northwestern, and then Northwestern just kind of like turned it into a slog, and Ohio State didn't realize that Trey Sermon was having the greatest game in the history of college football until pretty darn late in the game. And then once they figured that out, it was like, oh, okay. And now it's fine because we have this guy who's going to break the school rushing record in a game. But there's enough weird stuff that it wouldn't be a shock if they lost that. But if they're 11-1, they're going to get there. And if they get there, they're going to be favored. So I say, yes, they win that game.
Well, let me just clarify. The question is, Big Ten champion. Not like, is Ohio State going to win the Big Ten? Question is Big Ten champion, and you're like, yes. So good job getting that right. Yes.
Is there going to be Big Ten champion awarded this year? Boy, I hope so. I sure hope.
Last year was a question. This year, hopefully less of a question. So yes, Tom does predict that there will be a Big Ten champion this year. So that's a good one. So I will agree with both parts. Yes, there will be a Big Ten champion, and yes, it will be Ohio State. However, I am on the Wisconsin bandwagon. Like, I think Graham Mertz will continue to get better. I think they have enough receiver talent. They always have the offensive line. They've got the defense that just knows what they're doing. And this is where I expect like Jalen Berger at running back to begin to become the standard Wisconsin running back, because now they've gone a year without a Wisconsin running back production wise. And I don't know the last time they went 2 years, like 1991. Like, when was the last time they went 2 years without a really productive running back? And usually they would have guys come out of nowhere, like a PJ Hill as a redshirt freshman, where you're like, who is this guy? And so it's
whoever was before Brent Moss is probably the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd
go back to the early 90s. So we will both go with Ohio State there. Next one, I'll go first. Does Ohio State make the playoff? And if so, what is their rank? I guess if they're going to win the Big Ten championship with one loss or 0 losses, then yes, they are by default in the playoff, and not by default, by all fault. They are the cause of being in the playoff. Like, if you win a Big Ten championship game or Big Ten championship with 1 loss or 0 losses, I don't know how they are kept out unless there are other undefeated teams and a 1-loss SEC team that is, Georgia or Texas A&M, or, because you can see like a Texas A&M sneaking in or an Alabama sneaking in if the other team in the West goes undefeated and Alabama or Texas A&M doesn't have to play Georgia, and they can get away from that, and maybe they get, they are good enough to be in the playoffs. But yes, I do think Ohio State will make the playoff. Their rank, I don't know, because I don't know that Clemson is going to be there. I don't know that anybody from the ACC is going to be ranked ahead of them. I wouldn't expect anybody from the Pac-12, but I would suspect Oklahoma and the SEC to be ranked ahead of Ohio State. So I will say number 3. Where are you, Tom?
Wow. An undefeated Ohio State Big Ten champion ranked 3rd? Wow. Now who's a hater?
I didn't actually think that one out clearly. But I would expect the other 2 to go undefeated as well at this point.
Yeah, I have Ohio State making the playoff. A 12-1 Big Ten champion Ohio State is going to make the playoff in virtually every possible circumstance. So, unless Oregon beats Ohio State and that's their 1 loss, and Oregon runs the table and they're the Pac-12 champion and the SEC champion, and Clemson and Oklahoma, outside of that kind of, weird scenario, I can't come up with one where a 12-1 Big Ten champion, or Ohio. We have seen a Big 12-1 Big Ten champion Ohio State left out, but it took a, multi-score road loss to Purdue to get knocked out. So, barring something really crazy, yes, they make the playoff. I have them, yes, and I have them as a 3 as a 3 as well. Whoever wins the SEC, if you're a 1-loss Ohio State, whoever wins the SEC is going to be ahead of you, just because that's how the committee works. And yeah, Oklahoma runs the table or Clemson runs the table. If Clemson runs the table and beats Georgia, maybe even if Clemson is 12-1 or 12-1 and has lost to Georgia in the beginning of the season, but run the table in the ACC, they're potentially ahead. So yeah, I think yes. And I think number 3, and that could set up Ohio State versus Clemson part 3, or that could set up Ohio State versus Oklahoma or something like that. If they're the 3 seed, that sets up a really, really interesting matchup.
We know a close loss to Georgia is better than a big win over Oregon. Because if Ohio State blows out Oregon, you confirm that, Oregon's no good. It doesn't say anything about how good Ohio State is. I do think Oklahoma is – there's always an infatuation with Oklahoma, and they always seem to get forgiven for the previous year. And there's amnesia with Oklahoma. And, of course, if Alabama is undefeated, even though I believe we both think they will not be, and because we both took the under on their 11.5 regular season win total. So we will see, but I know a lot of people really like Georgia as well. So maybe I'm still trying to figure out how Ohio State can be the 3rd seed while being undefeated. But we know the committee they're like you, Tom. They hate Ohio State. Next one, I will let you go first.
Yeah, I was going to let you go first because I haven't made up my mind on this one yet. I pasted this in and just sort of like typed out some answers real quick, and this is the one I have blank because, I think there are 5 possible answers here, and I don't have any that I would put more than about a 25% chance on. It's just the question is who is the national champion, and you go back a week. I interviewed Phil Steele on the Morning Scoop, and I was just kind of running through the questions with him beforehand, and I was talking about Georgia and Alabama, and it seems like this may be the year that Georgia breaks through. And it was interesting you had Alabama ahead of them, and he's like, oh no, I think everyone's going to have Alabama ahead of Georgia. And to me, like, this is the year that Georgia has a chance to break through and beat Alabama. And if they beat Clemson, or even if they lose a close one to Clemson and then they run the table and they're 11-1, I mean, they're still probably, the way the world works, probably still the number 1 seed. You knock Alabama out there. I mean, this seems like if this year Alabama is going to lose 2 games, this is the year it happens. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It's just like there's a lot of, the SEC, you've got some tough teams in the SEC West. LSU should be better. Texas A&M, another team that's always like, this is their year. It's like, is it? Because it seems like they've been there a year a lot and hasn't actually panned out. But, they get Georgia in the SEC championship game. Like, there are some losable games there for Alabama. So, I feel like you could go Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, put those 5 in a hat and kind of pick out any of those 5. And I'd kind of be like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like, this is, I have in the past been very, very like openly hostile to the idea of Oklahoma, because it's like Oklahoma has failed in exactly the same way for like every single year they've been in the college football playoffs. It's like, oh, no. This year, their offense is good enough that it will be able to overcome their defense. You will see it will be different. And then you do see, and it is not, in fact, different. They get blown out of the first playoff game like they do every single year. This year, it's like, okay, but the defense is better this year. And it's like, I'm kind of willing to accept that this might actually be a better Oklahoma defense that solves its problems in a different way and doesn't fail in exactly the same way as it always has. They finally have some defensive linemen that might be able to hold up in those big college football playoff games. So I'm willing to lump Oklahoma in there with the other 4, but yeah, I mean, pick a team, man. Like, I don't know. It is literally just pick it. You know what? I'll pick Ohio State just so that, just so that you can be the hater this time. Because I feel like it's just, throw the names in a hat and pick one out. And it's like, sure, I'll just nod along. Absolutely.
Well, and it's funny that you say that. First, it's funny that I just ripped on Oklahoma. And like the first thought that's coming to my mind is like, I might go with Oklahoma. And it's like, no, you idiot. You have become the very people that you are ridiculing. It's like, well, of course. I mean, I know who I am. But then as I'm thinking, if I'm not taking Alabama, which I'm not, because I think something happens, do I think, and I've got an NFL guy in my ear all the time, Georgia. I think Ohio State can beat Georgia, and the defense will be good enough by the end of the season. And I don't know that Georgia's offense necessarily is this outstanding threat until we see it. It's not an Alabama offense. Oklahoma, you just assume like up front, do they have it and defensively, and do they wear down? So, oh gosh, Tom, I don't know if this is a good idea, because I was going with Ohio State before you said it, and now this Ohio State centric podcast with the 2 hosts saying, yeah, Ohio State's going to win a national title. It's just so cliche. But
your actual answer is then.
Stay tuned for the next episode. I'm going to go Ohio State.
Okay, well then good. I'll change my pick to Georgia. Good. Okay, that's fine. Because here's the thing. It's just you have with Georgia, like the running back talent at Georgia is just bananas, like bananas. The defense should be pretty good. Offensive line, I think, should be pretty good. You got JT Daniels, who's healthy now, so you're not throwing in what's his name, the mailman, to run
Karl
around.
Malone.
Karl Malone. Yes, Karl Malone, Dwan Mathis. Like the quarterback play last year was like completely derailed the season. This year, if JT Daniels is healthy, and so far the indication is that he will be, then that is one of those last pieces. And didn't they get Eric Gilbert? Where did Eric Gilbert transfer to?
Yeah, that sounds right. He didn't go to Florida, right?
No, I don't. I think he went from LSU to Georgia, which I mean, then you have a really elite tight end. I mean, there's just a lot of pieces there. And if you look at all the talent composites, the 247 talent composite and all that stuff, Georgia's actually ahead of Alabama on some of those metrics. Like it is a deep, talented roster. And, I know there's the running joke. They haven't won the national championship since 1980, and it's been, 15,000 days or whatever since they won the national championship. And they came real close a couple of years ago. They've had, the one loss that you couldn't afford to have, kind of like Oklahoma. It feels like this is going to be Oklahoma or Georgia. Like one of them does it this year. I'll go with Georgia. That's fine.
You just picked Ohio State, and then you're like, it feels like Oklahoma or Georgia.
Well, it feels like those two have quarterbacks back. Everyone else kind of has some questions. And, like if Bryce Young gets hurt, who's up next at Alabama? I don't know that there's a super fantastic answer. If DJ Uiagalelei gets hurt at Clemson, who's up next at Clemson? Ohio State probably has some better options at quarterback in terms of depth, but So again, you put those 5 names in a hat and I'll accept any possible answer.
And I wonder if we're overlooking Clemson a little bit just because of how that first game against Georgia is going to tell us a lot but not really mean anything. Like it won't carry much weight. It won't keep anybody out, but it will give us an idea of what these two teams look like, unless they're both bad. And then it's like, oh my gosh, their defenses are so good. And Clemson's defensive line is going to be a lot better than it was last year because there was a bunch of freshmen and sophomores, and now these are sophomores and juniors, and they'll be good. And we already saw how good DJ was last year. So I'm going to go with Clemson. No, I guess I'll just stick with Ohio State. I don't like the question because,
there are so many. This is a year when it feels like there are only 5 possible answers to that question, but all of them are about equally likely to happen. So it's like, yes, how hard can this be to pick out of this very small group of teams? Like, well, it's a 1 in 5 shot. So 4 in 5. We'll do a little more math for you. Means a 4 in 5 chance that you're wrong. So I don't particularly care for the question, and I won't answer it.
Especially when I think we both just immediately dismiss Alabama. That seems pretty dumb on our part. Just to say. So next one, Tom. Starting quarterback, the Ohio State starting quarterback by the end of the year will be
CJ Stroud.
I agree. I don't know that there needs to be much. Although, Tom, did you know? Have you heard about this Quinn Ewers kid who's coming to campus? And by the time people are listening to this, may have already arrived. Would you like to change your answer now that I reminded you that Quinn Ewers is coming to town?
You mean Quinn Pitcock?
No, Quinn Ewers. He's a quarterback. He's from Texas, kombucha. I mentioned kombucha. That probably rings the bell.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Oh, the kombucha guy.
Yes. Now it's coming back. Yes.
You should have said the kombucha guy.
In that case, I'm going to go with CJ Stroud.
Oh, okay. I will as well. That just seems to be the safest answer. And right now, I need to get a couple of these right. I need to start building up a streak and making myself feel better. So yes, I will go with CJ Stroud as well.
This feels like your weekly bold predictions column where every week on Friday you write it and you write 5 bold predictions and I look at them. I'm like, oh, these all seem reasonable. And then every Monday it's like, I got 1 of 5 correct. It's like, how do you get 4 or 5 wrong every week? These all seem very reasonable. And then,
yeah, I don't want to talk about it. Next one, Tom. Oh, geez, what is this? Will it be the same starting QB at the start of the 2022 season? Oh, I see what we're doing here. So will CJ Stroud, since we're both going with CJ Stroud, will he then be the starting quarterback at the start of the 2022 season? I guess since you answered first last time, I will have to answer first this time. And I will say, gosh, this is the $1 million question to me because I have said it has to be open to everybody. You have to give everybody a chance to win it, an equal chance to win it. And yeah, it's great that you started in 2021. And yes, you're 5,200 yards passing and you're 64 touchdowns. That's nice. But it doesn't mean anything in the offseason, CJ Stroud. You're going to have to beat out Kyle McCord and Jack Miller and Quinn Ewers and whoever else they bring in. You don't know. It could be a number of guys coming in. But I can't not say it's going to be somebody other than CJ Stroud, even though I do think it has to be open for everybody. You have to give everybody a chance. You can't let talent like this just not get the opportunity. But I'm still going to go CJ Stroud because, as I said, I'm taking some easy wins right now. I need some easy wins, and I don't even know that they're wins, but I'm just playing the averages.
Yeah, I don't know that they're wins, and I don't know that they're easy. But yeah, I'm with you there. I think you have to kind of think that whoever leaves the season as the starter has probably had a pretty good season. I mean, we're talking about an 11-1 college football playoff, maybe national champion. I mean, we have seen this scenario in the past where, the guy who ends the season at Ohio State in the winning the national championship starting quarterback is in a quarterback battle the next year. Like, this is a thing that has happened semi-recently. So yeah. And I mean, that was a battle literally down to the wire where they made the decision on the sideline at the first game. So it's not as crazy to think as you might, as we might imagine, to think that guy could, have a really good year and then lose a job. But yeah, I think you kind of, the smart money would be on, yes, whoever it is that ends the season this year as a starter starts next year as a starter. But you're right. I mean, it has to be an open competition. That's sort of the nature of the college football in 2021, 2022 with the transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. If you come out of the national championship game or the college football playoff or wherever the season ends for them and go, this guy is our starter for next year, 100%, not a question, then you have a bunch of guys hitting the transfer portal because they don't have a chance to compete for the job. So you have to open it up. And then, these are talented guys. It is absolutely possible someone else wins the job. But, I think you sort of bet on the incumbent until you hear otherwise, which transitions us real nicely to the next question, Tony, in which I'm about to contradict myself.
All right. Tom, the next one is the leading rusher this year for Ohio State will be.
Well, you got to remember, as I just said, you have to bet on the incumbent. The incumbent, of course, in this case is Master Teague, which is why, in this case, I am answering TreVeyon Henderson.
Ooh, boy, go with the freshman. That's I would say a spicy meatball. Maybe that's going to be his nickname.
They actually have a running back nickname Meatball already, so you're going to have to.
But he prefers pork chop.
Well, we don't get to choose our nicknames, do we, Chief?
No, we do not, Coco. So you're going. I'm going to go with Mayan Williams. I can hear everybody listening to this when you say TreVeyon Henderson, like, yeah, like pulling over the car, just getting out and being like, yeah, it's TreVeyon Henderson. Did you hear that, everybody? And I just want to remind people, this is just a podcast, a couple guys. Like, it's doesn't mean nothing. All right, it means absolutely nothing. We're just a couple of guys. But me saying Mayan Williams, get back out of that car right now. No, Mayan Williams. That's where I'm going. Mayan Williams, where, we've, for the most part, we've seen him with the ones. But my concern, Tom, is that he's going to be he's the guy that will get you, 5-6 yards of carry and say like 16 rushes and, 80 yards or whatever. And then TreVeyon Henderson's the guy that gets you 9 carries for like 112 yards. And, he's going to have one of those 12 for 230 type of things where he's got like 2 60-yard runs. And I'll be like, mine has more carries though.
Yeah, it's his leading rusher in production. That's kind of vague. So
that's I altered that to be like, let's go yardage. I mean, carries, just because you had a lot of carries, like, yeah, 30 for 90. Good job.
Yeah, I think yes, Mayan Williams quite likely could be the guy who has the most carries. And I mean, it's entirely possible Mayan Williams is the leading rusher in terms of yardage too, because he does. I mean, right now, I think you sort of assume he's going to be ahead of Henderson. When you've got Henderson is not the little scat back where he's only going to get 6 carries a game. He has the opportunity to be a 15, 20 carry a game guy. And when you have that home run ability, you can skew those numbers where it's, you have 15 carries for 75 yards, like, 5 yards per carry. And then the next one goes for 75 yards. And it's like, 10 yards per carry. Okay. So that's where, the odometer starts spinning a little quicker on those rushing yards. That's my thinking there is you're hearing these reports out of practice. And it's just like every day he busts a 50, 60 yard run, like every day in practice. There are some questions about what that might say about the Ohio State defense. I, as the eternal optimist, will choose to believe that it is saying instead something about TreVeyon Henderson, and if no one, if other guys are not constantly busting 50, 60 yarders every day, and the indication is that they are not, then it maybe does say more about TreVeyon Henderson. And so yes, that is where I'm that's where I'm putting my bet.
Yeah, Tom, we haven't heard reports like this of big plays from a running back out of camp.
Don't say it. Don't
since
say it.
Dontre Wilson.
You said it.
So,
all right.
I mean, you got to think that this guy's going to have a huge impact, upwards of 200-300 yards this season, while Mayan Williams merely carries the team. I could see it being very much like Mayan Williams has already been compared to Maurice Clarett. And there's some validity to that, the way he was able to, in his many, many carries last year, avoid the first tackler, as Maurice Clarett always used to do. I could see this being like a thunder and lightning where Maurice Clarett is Mayan Williams. And then you've got TreVeyon Henderson as Lydell Ross.
I would go with Mo Wells because he's from down south. Well, Lydell Ross is from down south too. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there. Yes, yeah. So agreed. Good. I thought you were going to go with a Reggie Bush, Lendale White thing where, and then Ryan Day's up on the roof of the Woody Hayes and throws a dummy off of the roof. Yeah. That is, if you were to make a list of pranks you could not get away with pulling in the year of our Lord 2021, nope. Pete Carroll timed that one well.
Yeah, exactly. Get it and get out. So yes, you're going with TreVeyon Henderson. I'm going with Mayan Williams. We will be back here in about 5 months to see who actually got that one right. Now, this one, Tom, leading receiver in production, we can do this one of two ways, or two of two ways. We can just go yardage or receptions and yardage. Which would you prefer? I will give you because I feel like leading receiver in catches is probably Garrett Wilson,
which is what I had. I put Garrett Wilson down as my answer there because I think in catches it is. In yards, I think you've got a decent possibility that it's either Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave there.
Oh, I know. Decent, really. Those two best receivers in America. You think one of them might just lead the team in receiving yards? Oh, really?
Well, the next question is number 3 receiver in production, and I think the number 3 receiver in production is going to have a mighty fine season as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a pretty good chance that in receptions it's Garrett Wilson and yardage is Chris Olave. So,
yeah, that's where I am going right now because we saw that happen last year where they were both putting up over 100 yards per game, but by the end of the season, Olave had kind of outdistanced and stayed at that average. So I am with you. I'm going to go Wilson for catches, Olave for yards, but I think they both go over 1,000 yards. What about you?
That's probably, that would be a very, very good season. If you're playing 14 games, that's probably right. And you're playing 14 games, you only have to average 70-ish yards a game, something like that. Odds are there's going to be a game where they put up 180 or something like that at some point. So yeah, I guess in a 14 or 15 game sample, I think, you probably can say 1,000 for both of those guys.
David Boston and D Miller almost did it, and D Miller fell 25 yards short. So it's possible in a Ryan Day passing offense, in my opinion. Number 3 receiver in production, Tom. The only answer here for me is Jackson Smith and Jigba, and I'm saying I don't know where all of these catches are coming from, but it's going to be 40 for 600, something like that. Or, that's probably more of an average per catch than you normally get out of the slot. But I also think he's going to have some deep balls where he's not just going to be this, and no offense to KJ Hill, he's not going to be a catch and get tackled type of guy. Not that that's what KJ Hill was, but you can do more with Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you can use in more ways, downfield screens. I think there's going to be bigger plays. So 14, 15 yards a catch, I don't think is outrageous for him. So I'm going to go number 3 receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Tom, what about you?
Yes, that's who I have for the number 3 receiver. I think now you're kind of running through these numbers and it's 1,000 for Olave, 1,000 for Wilson, 600 for Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jeremy Ruckert's going to have 400, 500 yards. Okay, now you're at 3,100 yards. We haven't talked about Julian Fleming. We haven't talked about Marvin Harrison Jr. We haven't talked about Emeka Egbuka. We haven't talked about Jaden Ballard. We haven't talked about the fact that they're probably going to hand the ball off because they got a pretty good group of running backs. It's just I feel like one or more of these receivers is going to underperform the numbers because these are all plausible numbers. You're going to run into a footballs problem. there's only so many there's one football to go around on every snap of the game, and there's a lot of talented guys. Now, you're not going to have quarterback runs like they maybe have in the past, so you're probably not chewing it up with that. But, if it's 12, 15 carries a game for Travion Henderson, 12, 15 carries a game for Maya Williams, 10, 12 carries for Master Teague, whatever the numbers are, like, okay, there's 30, 35 right there, maybe 40 snaps. Okay, now you're going to throw the ball 20, 25, 30, 35 times, and you're going to complete. I mean, there's only so many footballs to go around. Someone's going to fall short of these numbers just based on that issue alone.
And can't forget DeJuan Jones as maybe an extra tight end.
Man, speak it into existence, man. Speak it into existence.
We got it. Like each show, at some point, we should just mention, and you got to get DeJuan Jones the ball. Don't forget about that. Next one, Tom, Ohio State's leader in sacks will be, I will let you go first, and then I will agree with you exactly on who you're going to say, because I already know. It is
Mike Vrabel. No? Was that not the right answer? No? How about Zach Harrison?
That is correct.
Yes, good. Yes. Yeah, I figured that would be that's probably the safest answer. Tyreek Smith, I think, is also an acceptable answer there if he can stay healthy. I don't think Jack Sawyer is going to get the snaps to do it. What
if he comes to Jack Sawyer and is like 12 and a half sacks? Like what?
Well,
like an Andy Katzenmoyer who, like, all you have to do is just go. Like, we'll take care of it. It's like bowling with bumpers. Just go that way.
If Jack Sawyer gets 12 and a half sacks as a true freshman, he's going to get another NIL deal, this time with an 18-wheeler truck company. He's going to have an even bigger truck next year. And he's not going to be able to park in the truck. Yeah, then he's not going to be able to park in the parking garage at hotel check-in day. So, yeah, maybe he should have, stay under 12 and a half sacks. That is my professional recommendation to you, Jack Sawyer. Stay under 12 and a half sacks this year. Just think about the parking.
Well, what you could do, Tom, yes, you could have a monster truck, but it has to be a convertible. And then, yes, you will have to, steer, as you're pulling into the garage, duck and make sure you can get under it, or maybe just lower it via hydraulics.
But why are you calling Jack Sawyer Gravedigger or Bigfoot? There's a story behind that, but yes. It's complicated. Can I just tell you how absolutely wild it is to have college football players posing on Instagram with here's the new ride someone gave me for being good at college football. Wow. I mean, of all the stuff in the last year, there's been some crazy stuff in the last year, but wow, we are through the looking glass here.
Yeah. And it's not Photoshopped by some opposing fan base that's trying to get somebody in trouble. It's amazing. What a world. Tom, I will go interception leader. I'm agreeing with you, by the way, Zach Harrison. I think I've said in the past, easy over on the 7.5. I might think about the 8.5, but how many reps is he going to get? It's going to be tricky because their teams are going to throw the ball, get rid of it as quickly as possible. Interception leader for Ohio State this year, I am going with free safety Josh Proctor. And I can hear people, he doesn't know how to catch the ball. He knows how to catch the ball. You put your hands together and you hold on to the ball, or you let it hit you and then you try to catch it after it's bouncing off your chest. He knows how to catch the ball. We know he's around the ball. That's the first thing. If you just be around the ball and good things will happen. We saw that early in his career when he was making an interception. He's well, yep, that's what we've been hearing. And then later the next game, he dropped an interception and then maybe dropped another 1 or 2 interceptions later on in his career. People think and they did the same thing with Anderson Russell. Meanwhile, he was a very good safety while he was at Ohio State, and his injury maybe cost Ohio State a 2006 national championship. But we don't need to talk about that. So I'm going Josh Proctor. He has the range. Now he just needs to, show that he has the feel and then come down with the football. And really, how many interceptions are we talking about here to lead a team? It's been a while since, you don't have a Malik Hooker every year. It's usually leading with 3 or something like that. So I think Josh Proctor can get 3 or 4 and be fine.
Well, you really disappointed me there because I was all prepared to swoop in with Josh Proctor and have you be like, what? And then you said Josh Proctor. I was like, man. So yeah, I thought about Craig Young. Maybe I don't think Craig Young plays enough snaps, but he's in that guy who's sitting underneath in zone that the quarterback doesn't see, and you get a couple cheapies that way. But I don't know that Craig Young is playing enough snaps to be the guy who ends up with that number. So yeah, I also am going with Josh Proctor. Same basic thinking. I feel like that's not usually a corner. A lot of times that's a safety spot, where, and again, like, just like you said, this is not like 8 interceptions and 3 or 4 pick sixes like Malik Hooker. We're talking 3 or 4 interceptions, but yeah, Josh Proctor was my pick as well. How disappointing.
Yeah. I still remember when I correctly predicted Malik Hooker would have like an All-American season and 3 or 4 pick sixes and have one called back. It was one of my best calls ever, but you could see it coming. I mean, I shouldn't pat myself on the back. I mean, you could see that he was going to be special. Tom, this one here, breakout freshman for Ohio State. I feel like I already know who you're going to say because you have already said it. But I'll let you go first, and then I will ask. Maybe don't go with that guy. Who would you be your number 2?
Well, I think there's one answer on offense and one answer on defense. So
Yes.
would you like me to would you like me to do the offense one or the defense one? You tell me.
Well, you've already talked a lot about TreVeyon Henderson, so give us the defense one.
Oh, I wasn't going to say TreVeyon Henderson. I was going to say Sam Hart. So you're the tight end, right? Is that not? No. Sorry. Well, okay. TreVeyon Henderson's a fine answer, I guess. Instead, I will talk about Jack Sawyer and his enormous truck. With Tyler Friday out now, and it sounds like Tyler Friday may miss most or potentially all of the season. Now there's an opportunity with the twos with the defensive ends, and there's probably an opportunity in the rushman package. He just seems like, you saw it in the spring. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be, he's not breaking Chase Young's sack record this year, but he should be pretty good, and he's going to have the opportunity to be pretty good. He's got he's got talent on the inside of the defensive line. Whoever he's up, on the other side of the line from, he's not someone you can triple team. You can't, like Joey Bosa in 2015. It's all sort of setting up for him to have a really good season. And, whether that's 6 sacks or 7 sacks, whatever. I mean, 3.5 is kind of like the bar. It's the barometer for like, this is about what you sort of expect. I think he's going to exceed that, possibly by a couple. Again, not like 15 sacks this year, but if he's at, 6, 7 sacks, that's a huge freshman year, an enormous freshman year. And I think he's got the ability to do that. So I'll go with him. Who are you going with? I'll let you pick someone on offense. You can take anyone you want on offense. Who would you pick out of anyone on offense?
I'm going to go CJ Stroud. If you're going to give me a redshirt freshman,
I'm not going to give you a redshirt freshman.
He's true freshman eligibility. The NCAA gave his year back.
Nobody likes people who play lawyer ball, Tony. Come on.
I will take this to Wyatt, and I will say, what are you going to do? You going to kick me out? You're going to kick me out of the league? Okay. I will leave you with CJ Stroud, and I will take Jack Miller. No, I will go with, after a lot of thought and consideration, talking with my family and my coaches, I'm going to go TreVeyon Henderson, freshman running back at Ohio State, whom, again, he's not good enough to lead Ohio State in rushing this year. We know that. That has been established. Everybody knows that. But he can certainly shine in a limited role and break out in a sense, like break out into a pasture, but there's still a fence around the pasture. He's not wild and free like Mayan Williams rushing for 13 or 1,400 yards. TreVeyon Henderson's more of an 800 to 1,000 yard guy this year. So I'm going to go with TreVeyon Henderson, who I do think could be one of those. I keep using the Bijan Robinson thing, and I do wonder. I don't think he will start as slowly as Bijan Robinson. Like, I don't think he'll have games where he just has like 3 carries like Robinson may have had. But I don't also think he's going to finish the season like Robinson, where he was getting 16, 20, 22 carries. That being said, would not shock me in the least if TreVeyon Henderson is starting by the end of the season. We have said that from the outset, that no, not in September. Very, very possibly by November, he will be starting. And nothing that has happened since the spring, since the summer, since fall camp has changed any of that. In fact, it is only confirmed and maybe sped up October, mid-September, could he be in the starting lineup? So yes, I will go with TreVeyon Henderson. And I think he could be a 1,000-yard guy on 120 carries, and that's what we're talking, 8 carries a game.
Yeah, I mean, again, 1,000 yards sounds like a crazy high amount. And if you're doing it in the old days when it's a 10-game regular season, like, wow, that's a crazy amount of yards. Now it's like you play 14 games. It's like, I remember as a kid getting like the NFL football cards, and there's like 1,000-yard rushers, and I'm looking and I'm like, I haven't even heard of this guy. And you flip the card over, it's like, yeah, he just had 70 yards every game, and he ended up with a 1,000-yard rusher. It's like, well, okay, college football's kind of turned into that with the season the way it is. You have a couple 120, 130-yard games. You can have some 50-yard games and still get to 1,000 yards. So yeah, 1,000 yards is not quite what it used to be, but you have the artificial constraint that we talked about, where number of footballs, like you're not getting 27 carries a game like Mike Weber did, and not Mike Weber, J.K. Dobbins did in his freshman year, 2017. His first game against Indiana, he had 27, 29 carries. I mean, you're not getting the ball that much because there's too many other good running backs right now. So, and there's too many wide receivers on this team, and there's too many tight ends on this team. And there's too many options on offense. So you're not going to get that many. But yeah, I'm with you. 1,000 yards is absolutely within reason for TreVeyon Henderson, and I agree, he will lead the team in rushing.
No, Tom, no, he will not, and we have agreed on that. That has been established. That is now that's Buckeye Weekly canon, so you can't change it. It's canon. The last one here. Let's go. National passing defense rank at the end of the season. We're talking passer rating. We're not doing yardage.
Yeah. This is my this got the hair on the back of my neck standing up. Like, well, which one, Wyatt? Come on, man. Yeah. Which one are we talking about? Because yes, total yardage is garbage stat. Are we talking about opposing passing? Are we talking about like the SP plus defensive against the pass rating? Are we talking about,
I am not.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're not. For our smarter listeners, are we talking about the SP plus defensive passing rating allowed kind of number? Are we talking about, FEI? What are we talking about here? So yeah, I think, yes, the total yardage number is going to be pretty high because they're going to have a lot of big leads. So you're having a lot of teams throwing, but in terms of passing efficiency, in terms of, yards per attempt, something like that, I think, this is not going to be the 2019 team where they were like top 5 in the nation, but it's also not going to be, last year they were like 60th, 70th, something like that. This feels like 20th, something like that. They're not going to be incredible dominant lights out like they were in 2019, but they're going to be plenty good enough, I think. So you say like 20, 25, something like that. What about you?
I wrote down top 30, which to me, I was thinking, 29, somewhere in there in terms of like pass efficiency. And that would match up to whatever the your SP plus and your FEI, but the passing yardage, although last year Ohio State did give up 300 yards passing a game, and it was bad. But that Clemson game where they gave up 400, it was like the most meaningless 400 yards you've ever seen. And really, when you're leading any game and the team just has to start throwing the ball, it's all meaningless. And especially when you're allowing them to throw it. And so I'm with you on defensive yards given up is pointless and doesn't really tell anything. And I'm not even one of the stat nerds that like does all the analytic stuff. Even I know as a caveman, statistically, like yardage is, in terms of defensively passing yards, it's worthless almost.
Yeah, if you're wondering why we're saying that, like go through the list of like highest passing yard in a game on Ohio State for Ohio State, or highest passing yards allowed in a game by Ohio State, and look at how many of them are losing games. Like there was Dwayne Haskins had a big passing game, I think, against Purdue in 2018. Like, well, that didn't go great. I think it was Dave Wilson for Illinois had like the most passing yards ever against Ohio State. Well, that was a loss. Like there's a lot. It's real easy to pile up kind of empty calorie passing yards in a game you're getting smoked because then the defense is backing off. And it's like, okay, if you would like 8-10 yards a pass, by all means, take it, run the clock, keep things going. Like that's fine. You can march up and down between 20s as much as you want. That's a lot of yardage. It doesn't mean any points. It just means a lot of yardage. So yeah, the total yardage is, you need kind of like efficiency and like per snap, and take out your garbage time and that kind of stuff. Some of the more advanced metrics like SP plus, that's always a little bit of a better measure than just like the raw yardage numbers.
I think, was it 582 yards? For some reason, that's sticking with me with Dave Wilson. I don't know. We can look that up for the next show. We'll have a producer take a look at that and punch that up on the computer and let us know how that, whether I was right about that. Anything else, Tom? We've gone through the entire list. It turns out that TreVeyon Henderson probably going to be pretty good. Not great. It's pretty good. Zach Harrison's going to be really good. CJ Stroud, not a true freshman. Whatever, Tom. Let's see. I bet he could stay for 5 years if he wanted to. So
over under on the number of more additional years CJ Stroud plays. Let's say over under 2.5.
Well, Tom, we got to go. Of course, the answer is push. He's going to leave in the middle of the season, like kids do these days. So great way to speak that one into existence, Tom. That will do it, right? Are we done? We're good?
We're done.
Done. Perfect. I love it. Want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. BuckeyeScoop.com. Check it out. Become a member. Our Ask the Insiders board popping with information right now. It was a very quiet weekend in terms of coverage on site at the Woody, but that doesn't mean we didn't have plenty of information for you. So make sure to check that out. If you're not yet a member, now is the time. I promise you. Plus, we've got many more things coming this month that you will want to be a part of. So check that out, youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop, where you can see all of our videos, including this one and many others like it. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you guys later.